see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sex.
The big secret from Yamaha's garage finally began to be revealed at Jerez today. Amidst the increasingly heated spotlight of the 2026 MotoGP season, one name once again stole the spotlight: TOPRAK Tamed. It wasn't just about speed, but also about how he was beginning to tame the wild nature of Yamaha's V4 engine, which had long been considered difficult for even the most experienced riders to master. Since morning, before most teams had even begun their sessions, TOPRAK was already present in the pit lane. His early presence was not without reason. Yamaha had brought a significant telemetry data update package, the result of extensive work by their engineers over the past few weeks. The main focus? Adjusting the character of the V4 engine to better read TOPRAK's signature aggressive riding style. And the results were immediate. From early data leaked from the paddock, it was clear that TOPRAK was starting to find his long-lost rhythm. In braking, his main strength since the World SBK era, he was able to take the bike deeper into corners without losing stability. This was no small feat. Yamaha's V4 engine was previously known for its inconsistent engine braking, making it difficult for many riders to enter tight corners. But today, the telemetry graphs showed something different. There were significant improvements to deceleration control. This means Yamaha has successfully reconfigured the engine braking distribution and throttle response to make it more linear. And this is where TOPRAK's genius came into play. He used these changes to restore his late braking style, the style that once made him so dominant. Even more surprising, when accelerating out of corners, TOPRAK no longer seemed to be fighting the bike. Previously, Yamaha's V4 tended to be aggressive and unpredictable when fully opened. However, the latest data shows that the power delivery curve is now much smoother. The result? Increased traction, reduced wheel spin, and TOPRAK being able to open the throttle earlier than in previous sessions. Several internal sources reported that Yamaha also made changes to the electronic mapping, particularly in the areas of traction control and anti-wheelie control. This combination gave TOPRAK more confidence exiting fast corners, an area that had previously been a weakness. He looked much more relaxed. There were no more excessive corrections mid-corner. The bike seemed more stable, and TOPRAK was able to focus on his racing line without having to fight with the engine's character. This is a classic sign of a rider becoming one with his bike. And here's the full news. The biggest story arc in MotoGP 2026 today didn't come from an on-track duel, a dramatic crash, or even a brilliant pit stop strategy. Instead, all attention was drawn to one garage, one bike, and one rider who was slowly changing the narrative: TOPRAK Tamed. What happened at the Circuito de Jerez today felt like a rare moment when scattered puzzle pieces finally began to come together, and the results immediately shook the entire MotoGP paddock. From the morning, the atmosphere had been unusual. While most teams were still preparing, TOPRAK was already in the Yamaha Motor Company garage. There weren't many cameras capturing the moment, there wasn't much hype at the start, but that's precisely where it all began. He arrived faster, more focused, and with one very specific goal: to test the latest telemetry package, believed to be a turning point for Yamaha's V4 engine project. This wasn't just a minor update. It was the result of lengthy evaluation, in-depth analysis, and perhaps a bold decision that had been put off for so long. When the bikes left the pit lane for their first run, many expected it to be just another adjustment session. But within the first few corners, the signs began to show. The bike no longer seemed to be fighting its rider. There was none of the harsh movement, none of the extreme instability that had previously characterized the Yamaha V4. Instead, there was something smoother, calmer, yet holding far greater potential. And TOPRAK immediately felt it. Entering the first braking section, an area that had previously been TOPRAK's domain, the change was clear. He braked deeper, released the lever later, and maintained a precise entry line. Telemetry data showed increased braking pressure, yet the bike's stability remained intact. This meant Yamaha had succeeded in something they had previously failed to achieve, aligning engine braking with TOPRAK's extreme style. There was no more sudden snap from the engine. There was no more uncertainty entering sharp corners. Everything felt linear, predictable, and, most importantly, able to be fully exploited. And this is where the story began to shift from mere improvement to a real threat. On corner exit, which had always been his most glaring weakness, TOPRAK was at his most aggressive. He opened the throttle more quickly than usual, even at points where he'd previously had to hold back. The power delivery, which had previously felt brutal, had now become progressive. The acceleration graph showed a much cleaner curve, without the wild, uncontrollable surges. Traction had improved significantly, and the wheel spin that had once been so common was now barely noticeable. This wasn't just about a smoother engine, it was about regaining confidence. And when a rider like TOPRAK regains that confidence, the effects can be profound. The laps began to flow, and that's where the biggest surprise came. The times weren't just fast, but consistent with a level of precision rarely seen in testing. Usually, when a new setup is tested, there are big fluctuations in lap times. But today, the difference between TOPRAK's laps was minuscule. This indicated that what he was feeling wasn't a fluke. This was a real foundation. Something he could build on, develop, and take to the next level. In the paddock, the mood began to change. Mechanics from other teams began to glance at the timing screens more frequently. Data analysts began to pay attention to each sector. Some even tried to match TOPRAK's riding style to the bike's changing performance. Because what they saw wasn't just a simple improvement, it was an indication that Yamaha might have found the direction they'd been looking for. Inside sources say the biggest change was in the electronics. The new mapping changed not only throttle response, but also how traction control and anti-wheelie control worked together. Previously, these systems often collided, creating inconsistent responses. But now, everything felt in sync. Rider input was directly translated by the bike without any annoying delays. This created a much stronger connection between rider and machine, something that's crucial at the MotoGP level. But numbers and graphs only tell half the story. The other half was evident in the way TOPRAK rode the bike. His body language had changed. He no longer seemed tense. There were no overcorrections mid-corner. There were no moments where he had to save the bike from losing grip. Instead, he seemed fluid. Every corner was taken with confidence, every acceleration executed with complete conviction. It was the clearest sign that he was starting to become one with the bike. And when that happens, the performance ceiling will shift. What makes this situation even more interesting is the context. MotoGP 2026 is a season where competition is getting fiercer, technology is advancing, and the margin for error is getting smaller. In these conditions, a single technical breakthrough can change everything. And what Yamaha demonstrated today has all the elements to be that breakthrough. They are not just fixing weaknesses, they are starting to maximize strengths. TOPRAK, with his unique and aggressive riding style, now has the tools to match his instincts. He no longer has to adapt completely to the bike. Now, the bike is starting to adapt to him. This is a huge paradigm shift. And if this trend continues, it's not impossible that we'll see Yamaha back at the forefront sooner than many expected. Meanwhile, rival teams are not standing still. Their reactions may not be overt, but they are certainly noticeable. There's increased intensity in other garages. There are more serious discussions, deeper analysis, and perhaps a pang of concern is beginning to emerge. Because in the world of racing, everyone knows one thing. When a project finally clicks, the impact can be swift and brutal. And today, in Jerez, all the signs began to show. What was initially thought to be a simple test session turned into a moment that will be remembered as a turning point. Not because of a single fastest lap,